Welcome to the Simply Jenna podcast. This is Breaking the Stigma, a special mini-series. Join us as we interview different people and talk about their journey to wellness. If you have thought about getting support but were afraid, or are afraid of what others might think, this series is for you. Stay tuned for some really good stories. Welcome to the Simply Jenna podcast. This is Breaking the Stigma. Today we have an amazing set of guests. We have Bryce and Dave, and they are from 360 Energy Liability Management, and they are on a quest.
So to kick us off then, as we do with all of our guests, we're going to ask you a few just introductory questions. So can you tell us, let's start with Dave. Do you want to tell us your age, hometown, what you do, and a fun fact, please?
Sure. So I'm Dave. I'm 34. Hometown would technically be Saskatoon. I was born in Saskatoon, but I grew up in Calgary from a young age, elementary up. So I'm a Calgarian. I'm business development manager for 360 Energy Liability Management. So we are a oil and gas closure firm. We help oil and gas companies deal with their liabilities and how to, safely and efficiently close old and aging sites, well abandonment, decommissioning, pipeline decommissioning, environmental reclamation and remediation. So I'm kind of the front end of our business, the business development side, do all the sales, marketing, and fun things like what we're doing now with the mullets. So that's my role at 360. And a fun fact about me, I really enjoy cooking, kind of a amateur home chef. And just as I was starting my previous company before I started with 360, I was invited to audition for MasterChef Canada, but decided to not take it because I just started a new job, trying to, be responsible. And I always kick myself now because I wish I kind of did it and maybe made the show and kind of, continued my passion for cooking. But that never happened. So I just kind of laugh about it sometimes.
Oh my goodness. I know, it's a shame you missed out. So then I have another follow-up question for that. What's your most favorite dish to make? If you could pick one.
Come on. That's tough. I like smoking proteins. Probably my ultimate favorite thing is probably like a bone-in tomahawk ribeye steak, like a 30-ounce ribeye with the big bone in it, and searing it off and then finishing in the oven, and then some sort of something to go with it, like a chimichurri, a homemade chimichurri or something like that.
Oh my God. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
Now I'm hungry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, Dave. Okay. So Bryce, same questions to you then. So age, hometown, occupation, and then a fun fact, please.
So my name is Bryce Watson. I'm from a place called Port Alice on northern Vancouver Island, and it's probably about 1,200 people. Now it's about 300. It's a little forestry town.
Wow.
Fantastic place to grow up. Fun fact, my occupation is I'm the chief liability officer of 360. It's a new title. We made it up because our company has kind of a new structure. We're kind of like trying to change the face of how closure was in the oil and gas sector, and so we look at closure differently, and sort of our one of our company missions is closure makes a difference. And so that's why we really wanted to come up with a unique title and kind of a unique structure for the business. So I was one of the founders, one of the three founders with Mark Ashton and Ryan Smith. Fun fact about myself is that when I was 40 years old, I played a singles match for squash for a trophy with the former captain of Team Canada's rugby team. It was a match that went to five games. It was the longest match. I don't know if I've ever heard of one that went longer, but yeah, it was the crowning achievement of my sporting career. But it just so happens that captain of Team Canada's rugby team is my business partner, Ryan Smith. So so I think that trophy would have been the crowning achievement of his career as well. And he tried really hard, but he doesn't have that trophy. So he has a lot of other things, but he doesn't have that. Anyway,
I'm sure he
that's just a fun fact.
Yeah. And I'm sure he misses that trophy dearly.
Yeah.
I'm positive of it.
So the irony of it is he has a couple from that same tournament that are just like it, but he doesn't have that one.
And that's what's important.
That's right.
I don't know. Yeah, that one I think is made of gold. The other ones are something else.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's a great one. Thank you for sharing that, Bryce.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Okay. So why don't you guys tell us a little bit about Mullets for mental health then, for those of us who maybe haven't heard about it yet, or just hearing the rumblings about it. Maybe if you've seen the news, you might've seen the segment on the news, but tell us a little bit about what's going on with Mullets for mental health.
So we wanted to do something. We always try to do, at least twice a year or each season, a community initiative. So over the holidays, we had an initiative for Calgary Meals on Wheels. So we're just, what should we do in the spring? And we were spitballing ideas around. And so kind of taking a step back, we talk a lot about the culture at 360 being the mullet culture. It's something that Bryce and Ryan and Mark started early days and really embedded that culture into the company as we've grown. So basically, very professional, polished business in the front, make a difference for our industry and our clients, and very professional, take everything seriously, but we have a lot of fun at the same time, whether it's in our office, after work, having some beers, or just having good times with our clients, or whatever that is. We make sure that we have a lot of fun while doing what we do every day. So business in the front, party in the back is the culture at 360. So that's a theme that we have. There's pictures of Patrick Swayze around our office, and we even made a little logo, a fun logo, a secondary logo that's a little mullet, and it kind of resembles Swayze's flow. So we put that on hats and stuff. It's our fun logo. So that culture has always been there. And so we decided, we're like, well, let's tie our spring community initiative to the mullet somehow. And then, my hair was getting really long just because the barbershops closed down, and Bryce's hair always looks like a mad scientist. So we're like, someone, I can't even remember who it was. He said, mullets for mental health, let's grow mullets. Yeah. So it just was like, wow, that's a great idea. So we're like, how do we pull this off? And so we decided, we talked about what charity we wanted to support, and we threw a few around. We decided to go with the Canadian Mental Health Association because it's a broad association. It doesn't matter if it's a concussion from sports or stress at home. It covers the broad spectrum, which we thought was the best angle to go at it. So we started a campaign, a GoFundMe page, reached out to Canadian Mental Health Association, and decided on when we should do this. And right at the end of June, if Stampede did happen, if we were rocking mullets, that would be even better. So we were like, let's try to keep this hair going until end of June. And that's kind of how it came together. So it's a fun campaign, like Bryce said, to raise awareness, to raise some funds. That's definitely important, but it's more about the awareness. So we've raised about $5,000 now. We were hoping to maybe get to 10, but we'll see what happens. But it's all about the awareness, and mental health has become such a. I think it's always been an issue, obviously, but through COVID and the stresses on people's families and businesses, it's raised that concern even more. So I think it was good timing, and that's exactly what it is just to have some fun and grow our hair out because it's part of our culture. And at the same time, raise some money and awareness for mental health issues.
It's a fantastic, ingenious idea. Just before we comment on that, Bryce, did you have anything that you wanted to add to what Dave was sharing?
I actually, there's a couple of things. So the idea was actually my daughter's.
Oh.
That was where it came from. So I was because I don't know if Dave, like when I was driving with her, because I work in Calgary and I commute back and forth to the long commute. Anyway, so I have a bit of a drive with my kids about 2 hours. And so I told my kids I was growing a mullet because we came up with this, my partners, Ryan and Mark, came up with this business in the front, party in the back, whole philosophy for the project, or for the company, which I fully support and always have. And it's amazing. But I didn't even know what it was. And I was at a client function once, and there was this stuff on the table that was about this business in the front, party in the back. And I didn't even know what it was about. And so our clients are explaining it to us. And so, or to me, like, this is what it means. It's like, you're professional. And then, and I was like, oh, wow, that's embarrassing. So I had told my daughter about this story, and so she said, well, you should grow a mullet to show them, like, because obviously they have these professional haircuts all the time. And you, like Dave said, look like a mad scientist.
Yeah.
So she said, you should grow a mullet. And then she said, and then you should do it, like, because she knew it's like, she knows how much, I've talked to my kids all the time about mental health and about how important it is to talk, like, being, having the courage to talk about it all the time. And she said, well, why don't you do that? You're talking to us about it all the time. Why don't you do it for mental health? And so that was where it really, so I said, that was where the kind of quirky thing came from. Dave and I were talking about doing mullets before then.
Yeah.
That was where the whole tie-in fundraiser and everything came from. And so just to wrap it all up without making a huge story, it was this, when we started this, I was like super proud. And I sent, like, my kids this thing, and I was like, hey, look, your idea, like, it got some headway, and we started it for our company, and look, we got 12 people. And then the next day Global called, and it was I was like, hey kids, you can do anything, right? Yeah. Like, if you actually start anything. So this was really it's really, and like with you guys calling, and I'm hoping that we actually get a couple more things or do more, because I just think it's a great thing to show my kids you can do whatever, you have a great idea or a great initiative, it can snowball into anything. So that's really what I was, that's also part of it for me too. So, but also a huge kudos to Dave in this. Like, I spit out ideas all day long to other people, and I'm talking about stuff, and Dave took this and he got this off the ground. So Dave is just like the mastermind and everything behind this getting off the ground and moving forward. The awesome Swayze, or sorry, I don't even know if we can say Swayze. Yeah, no. I think it's going to be the Dave profile. That's going to be his profile going on we should do that on our hats. Is your profile with the beard? Mm-hmm. Change our profile. I got to grab the hat. I had to come inside. But, so you can see. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. No, sorry, that was too long on the first question. Sorry, we're taking it.
No. And you both hit on some really, really important points. So I'm glad that you got a chance to kind of share the history behind that. And so fantastic that the idea, was sort of born with your daughter, and then you kind of took it and ran with it, and everybody got behind it. And it's also fantastic to hear about, your culture as an organization, that there is that already the seeds of those really important ideas of having a good organizational culture sort of behind the scenes. And then that does make for a better product sort of, as forward facing. So I think it's fantastic. And I mean, when you're supporting mental health, you can never go wrong. Yeah. Right. And good on you for capitalizing on the conversation that's happening right now around COVID. Like, it seems like people are way more willing to talk about mental health because of COVID. I don't know if you want to talk to that at all, but
no, I agree entirely. And I think COVID has really helped people understand that we are all struggling, and that everybody has their own struggles. And so that's why, generating these conversations is so important. It's just reminding people that nobody's alone, right? And we all have our ways of managing things, and some people have inherent skills to manage things, some people don't. But it's important to have a conversation so we can share ideas and we can let each other know that we're not alone. And that's what I loved about your guys' initiative, and especially with
I think the industry that you guys are in, mental health is really important to be talked about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to just, again, reaffirm that idea that no one person is alone in their struggle.
Mm-hmm.
So love that. So
100%.
good on you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have one more question for you. It's more of a fun question before we move into more serious questions. So you've already mentioned Swayze as one person who's had a fantastic mullet. So if you had to say if there was one person in history who's had like the best mullet ever up until now, who would it be? Bryce, you go first.
Okay. So can it be someone who's not famous, like
Sure.
someone like a friend?
Yeah.
So Kyle Dance, he's our. So we have a partner company called Stratix. We started our business, and they do a database. But they have a database, and it's a fantastic management system that we've been developing, and it's fully focused on site closure. Fantastic thing. Not doing a pitch for him. Kyle has this mullet. I knew the guy for a few years before I was even like. I worked up the courage to talk to the guy because he was so intimidating with this mullet. Probably took 2 years before I actually talked to him. He's got hair down to here. So he has a great mullet. This is Kyle. So, but he has a fantastic mullet. But also I just need to, I'll just leave it there. But there's some professional wrestlers that Bret Hart has a great mullet.
Yes, that's true.
There might, and so does Shawn Michaels. Also great mullet. So but there's some hockey players, and I don't even want to go into it. And if I did, there'd be some. There's some that have a comparative hairstyle to mine. Patrick Kane had a great mullet at one point for the playoffs. It was kind of like a beaver tail because he had the curly afro. I won't say afro, with like extremely tight curly hair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he had a great mullet.
Both
well.
Beautiful. We agree. Those are good answers. I like those ones.
Yeah.
Okay, Dave.
Yeah.
What's your favorite?
I've got to go with a hockey player too. Jaromir Jagr in the early 90s. Like that mullet was just so ridiculous, and he rocked it so good. And he rocked a mullet for most of his career. I remember I think it was when he played for Washington later in his career, he cut it off, and he just didn't look as intimidating. And then and then when he got older, I think he grew it back again. But when he was at the Penguins in the early 90s, Jagr's mullet was legendary.
That's true.
I'm really, we're actually worried about you with our business development, Dave. Like once we go full mullet, like, I don't know. Like, I don't even know if like our sales are just going to go way down. Full mullet. It's too much. It'll be too much for people to take. It'll be like the outsiders coming for every sales call. You'll be like running for the doors, right?
True. Very true. Okay, when I think of mullets, you know who I think of?
Who?
Billy Ray Cyrus.
Oh,
Right?
he had a good one.
He
in the
had
90s. Yeah.
Great mullet.
Yeah.
I know. And we also have to favor, of course, Kelly Rudy.
Yep.
Because he's been
Kelly
on
Rudy.
our show. Yeah. And he had a beautiful mullet
he did.
in his day. So we
Absolutely.
definitely have to shout out to him. So, but yeah, there's been some beautiful ones and intimidating. You guys got it. It is true. It's intimidating.
I know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
It
Billy
is.
Ray's was even so powerful, he passed it on to his daughter, because Cyrus was rocking a girl mullet.
That's
So,
right.
Yeah.
That's very true. Good point.
It
So I think this interview would have a way different tone if Dave was full mullet.
I agree.
Like if he was, I actually, every time the screen pops up with him, I feel a little bit, just imagining if that was full mullet, it would be quite intimidating.
It is.
Fierce.
intimidating.
Fierce.
I feel like Jenna maybe needs to help Bryce a little bit after this phone call with his feelings around intimidation of
in mullets.
and mullets. Maybe
can
there's
have-
something there.
Yeah, we can talk about it, Bryce. Don't worry. We can conquer this fear.
Absolutely.
I can't wait till
Sorry.
we play Scott.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep it until we play our first game of Watch Bryce.
Yeah, absolutely.
When Bull Valley comes
Sure.
up,
You show the bandana, and then a mullet
you're in trouble.
underneath. Yeah. Mohawk.
That's Kelly Rudy, right?
Mhm.
Wearing the
Yeah.
bandana
Not the bandana.
and the
Right.
mullet.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
That's why he wore it.
Exactly.
It's a distraction. Everyone shot for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. That's right. Absolutely. Okay. So we talked about this a little earlier, but I just want to touch on it again because I think it's a really important piece to this whole fantastic initiative. Is the idea of, your sort of business culture already supporting the idea of a mullet, right? The business in the front, party in the back. So what do you think, like, how has that sort of helped move this initiative forward? What are your general thoughts on that? Bryce, do you want to go first maybe?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Yeah. So what I think that's really done is it's really generated that it's emphasized the importance that mental health is something that we all deal with every day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really interesting thing because I do a check-in with my partners every day, and I check in with everyone I see in the office or everyone I get a chance to check in with. It's always like, how you doing? How was your weekend? How's your mental health? It's actually become part of our regular vernacular in the office. Like, how's your mental health? It's just like, how are you doing? It's just part of our vernacular, like just part of regular everyday language, and it's a fantastic culture to live in.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody's there yet. There's a few of us, but it starts with repetition from leadership, and it'll carry on from that way. But it's important to become a regular part of our culture because we've neglected it for so long, and we've been so scared to recognize that mental health it's everyone has a mental health gauge. My mental health is great, right? My tank is full.
Mm-hmm.
My tank is empty, but everyone has a tank. Mental health should not be measured as a bad thing. It's something we all have. It's good or bad, right?
Yeah.
So that's really something that we've embraced in the office. And I think this initiative, I hope, changes that. So it's a regular part of our life. And it's not just, oh shit, my mental health. The only time we ever heard about it before, the only time we ever heard about mental health before was when someone crashed or when someone burned out or when someone needs help. But it's not when, hey, I'm feeling fantastic. Well, maybe I can lean on that guy a bit more. Hey, I'm gonna lean on that guy because he's got a bit more buoyancy. His cork is a bit higher than mine, and maybe he can help out a bit more. And that's really what I'd like. I'd like it to be more of a balance that way. So
and I think that makes all the sense in the world. And it's and we've chatted about this in previous podcast episodes, that whole conversation about how typically when people seek help for their mental health, it's when things are going really, really bad. Mm-hmm. It's very rare that somebody will reach out and say, I need some help when things are going well. And we encourage people to, even when things are going well, and you've spoken to this in the past, but that's usually the best time to reach out, right?
Yeah, because you can actually hear what the feedback you're getting. Mm-hmm. And when we're in a really tight spot or in a difficult spot, and we're just trying to cope through each day, it's really hard to hear, the bigger picture and to understand the bigger picture, because you're really just living day to day. And so that's why, generating these conversations, like you said, Bryce, when things are good is so helpful, because we can, really internalize the messages that we're getting, and we can also support each other. And so those are all really important strategies that you guys are using. So good on you guys. It's such a wonderful culture to be a part of.
And so Dave, then for you, that must have made your job so much easier to know that there already was this fantastic alignment between what you were pursuing and, and what the company believes in. So did you have anything else that you wanted to share on that before we move on to the next question?
Yeah, for sure. It's exactly that, the culture that, Bryce and Mark and Ryan built from day one. And it's just, kind of been progressing. I joined just over a year ago, so jumped into this, and they've already built this great culture. But the whole mullet mentality and how that builds into mental health is that comfort level. Mm-hmm. The vibe in our office is, I think a lot different than most companies. There's very much kind of a rapport that's really a nice comfort level. It's how are you doing, and you can go to anybody, whether it's, your superior or a peer, and just have that feeling of comfort that, maybe you're a little bit busy, or there's a little bit of a workload or a stress or whatever that might be, and you're comfortable to talk about it, and everyone's there, willing to pitch in and help. And it's very much a team feeling, and that mullet culture, and how it's really positively benefited mental health, and how we're comfortable to talk about it and ask for help. That's been huge, and it fits so perfectly into this campaign we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's also great that you have that culture sort of going into this whole pandemic piece where everybody is overloaded all the time and overwhelmed and unsure. And there's all these, feelings of anxiety anyway. So it's great that you already sort of had the fantastic foundation to kind of work from to face that. Right. Yeah. So good on you guys.
Yeah.
Okay. So my next question then is, do you think that there is a stigma about getting and receiving mental health support? Dave, do you want to go first?
Yes, I definitely think there is. Whether that's, just something that's built into our society over time, that it's not okay to ask for help when, when it's not visible. Like, sometimes, people struggling with mental health are the happiest people you've ever met on the exterior, and they're good at doing that.
Yeah.
And there is that feeling that asking for help or just talking to someone shows weakness or vulnerability or whatever that is. There definitely is a stigma there on reaching out for support, and that's part of the awareness piece that I think that it's definitely going in the right direction. There's a lot of initiatives out there that talk about mental health support now, and that it's okay to talk. But it is definitely a stigma that's been built into our society over time, that everyone is working on. And that was a big part of what we wanted to get out there for sure.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Great answer, Dave. And Bryce, any other thoughts on that?
No, that was really great, Dave. It's just really about, I think I really covered it sort of in what I said before too. It's about, there's a label. There has been a label and a stigma around it, and there really shouldn't be. It's really something that we all have. Mental health is a gauge, right? It's something, we all have a level of where we're at. And you know what? We all, one of the things is and kind of touched on it a bit earlier too, is we all have times when we're low, and we all have times when we're high, right? When I'm feeling great, and I hate that, like it's like a sine curve, and I don't know, we're not all nerds that know what that looks like, but life is like a sine curve, and it's, there's ups and downs, and when you're up, it's my responsibility. I feel it's my personal responsibility to help everyone to get everyone to that level, and that's really what we should be doing, and it's really a part of our self-awareness to recognize, and it's really hard to develop that, is that realize, hey, I should be able to lean on anybody to help me get up as well, because anyone will try, that's, you can't help but want to listen to somebody when they tell you there's something wrong. You just can't help but no one, it's about having the courage to speak up, right? It's all about courage and just getting the strength to speak up.
Absolutely.
And just ask for help. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. Jenna, did you have anything that you wanted to add on that piece?
Yeah, I just wanted to capitalize on what Dave said a little bit is, like you had said, that sometimes the happiest people on the outside are often the ones that are struggling. And so for me, like I always point to Robin Williams, right? Is that, somebody that, it was his mission in life to make everybody laugh. And that's where he, got his little bit of happiness from. And little did we all know how much he was struggling on the inside. And I think that's a really true depiction of a lot of people, is that, we really work hard to put up this really big front when in actuality, like we said at the beginning beginning, everybody is struggling in one way or another. And, you know, the questions that you guys are asking each other in your teams is so beautiful. And it just gives people that opportunity that, yeah, like I might look like I'm put together, but you know what, like everything at home is on fire or whatever. Right. And or I really am struggling, and giving people the opportunity to actually say it, and leaving that space, and to also celebrate, you know, what's going well is so important, is that, you know, we are celebrating each other, and we're supporting each other. And I love that you guys are doing it from the leadership down. I think that's so wonderful that you guys are walking the talk, and that's so important in an organization. So yeah, again, good on you guys. It's beautiful.
Very much.
So then would you say, and I already know what the answer is going to be this first part of the question, but humor me and answer it anyway. Do you think that there is a stigma specifically for men around receiving and seeking mental health support? And if you do think there is, why do you think the stigma is there?
I'm happy to go. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's all about image, and it's all about confidence, and how your image portrays across other men. And you can't help it. You can't help but, you know, no one wants to be the male that shows weakness, because if you ever watch wildlife videos, what happens, right? Yeah. That's what happens, right? We all keep it inside. And you know what? The older I get and the more confident I get in my decisions in life, the more I realize that you just have to have the courage to just start talking about it. And I've started to get more and more vocal as I've got older and older, because I've struggled through a lot of those things myself. And I don't know how I got through some of those dark times. And now when I look back, I'm like, I actually want to talk about this. And anyone I hear of who's going, like, especially men, because there's not a lot of support groups out there for men. Yeah. There aren't. Like I was with some guys the other night, we were having a drink, and he was talking about starting a mulligans club, which about guys going through divorce. And I said, what a fantastic idea. Because I have this like personal initiative. Whenever there's a buddy of mine going through divorce, I'm like, I know how hard it is to go through that by yourself, because I did it. And it was the dark, dark time. And I looked for support groups, and there aren't many. They're not easy to find. There was lots for other issues, but there weren't just a lot for men just trying to figure it out. Lots for women, which is understandably so, because there's a lot of dark times that women have to go through, but there's not a lot for men. Yeah. And so I just thought, you know what, I'm going to talk to as many, like whenever I hear someone going through this, I want to just talk to them, and having the courage and to have the candor to say, that's really dark. It was a really hard time. And when they hear what you've gone through, they're a lot more open. And you know what, if I can ever help one guy through it, I'd be so happy to know that it helped. And if that same thing with this initiative is just having the courage, have the candor to talk about it. So what's the expression? The deep thoughts. It takes a big man to cry, but it takes a bigger man to laugh at that man. So it's kind of like, it's kind of like mental health. It's like, you know what? No one's going to laugh at me if I tell them my mental health issues. If I tell them, no one ever does that. Everyone always.
Yeah, I know.
Always, sorry.
And again, that just goes back to like we said, everybody is struggling in one way or another, right? And so, you know, to hear that up here is struggling, you just want to wrap your arms around them and say, let me support you through this. Because I've been there, or I know what that feels like. Or I can just sit here and see that you're hurting. So what can I do for you? How can I support you? Right? Yeah. It's so important. Yeah.
Dave, did you have any thoughts that you wanted to add to that question before we move on?
I think Bryce nailed it pretty good. You know, it's definitely a little bit of the macho thing. You know, guys just have that, they don't want to show the weakness, and it's a macho thing. But also, I don't want to speak in generalities, but I think Bryce hit on it too. Men just tend to hold their emotions in, I think, a little bit more. And that's how we think we deal with it, by not talking about it and holding it in, where it's probably not the case. It's probably better to, you know, talk about some things. But I know for myself, I don't like to show my cards, and don't like to, you know, talk about things that are bugging me. And it's once you do it, you realize how helpful it is.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that's why, Bryce, you said it so beautifully before, is it's about that courage piece, right? That's why we say it takes courage to have these conversations, because you have to be vulnerable and you have to put yourself out there, and that, you risk some sort of reaction. You don't know what that reaction is going to be. Yeah. And you just hope that it's positive. Like Bryce, like you said, you hope that it's positive and that people now are more willing to have that conversation. So it's fantastic for men in general that this conversation is shifting, and that we are, the landscape is changing a little bit, I hope anyways. And with, fantastic initiatives like what you guys are doing, that only furthers the change in the landscape. Right. So it's really awesome. So if you could sort of change one thing, then if you had the power or the control to be able to change that conversation, what would you change about that? Maybe specifically for men, like the piece around the weakness associated with it, or the not being able to show your emotion. Like, what would you hope would change if you could?
So for me personally, and I guess I might be an anomaly with my friends, and probably might explain, but I wish it was more, people felt safer to talk about how they were doing. Like, it was just okay. Like, I sprained my ankle. It's really sore. It's broken. Take a look. And I'm really upset, or I'm really going through a hard time, and I really need to talk about it. So I've got a great network of friends that I have leaned on so heavily over the past year. Like, COVID has been so difficult. And then we've had a business that's exploded in the same time. So, like going through COVID and being isolated, plus that, I've never relied on my family and friends and that network, and had that courage. And so if there's anything that I hope would change, is I hope that everyone would have that same feeling that they could reach out that I've had, right? That ability and that network. And that's what I was really hoping with this campaign, and is that we can generate that comfort and awareness that it's okay to talk about anything, like anything at work, like with us, because you're safe and it's okay, and we'll figure it out. Yeah. Right. Nothing is so dark that you can't get out of it. Right. So, and that's really what I want to generate out of this is that it's okay. It's just part of it. We're all going through it, and it's no big deal. And we'll figure a way to get through. And I don't want to be too Pollyanna and it's going to be sunshine tomorrow, but you guys got the Pollyanna reference, which is ridiculous. You're not even near old enough. So, it's my mother's reference, and I barely get it. So
don't tell anybody our ages. Yeah. Don't be talking. Nobody's supposed to know that. We asked you your ages, but we don't talk about ours.
Yeah. So anyway,
there was one thing that Bryce said in there that was really good. Like if you have a broken ankle, know it's broken. Maybe the one thing that if we could change, just make it as acceptable to talk about as a physical injury. Yeah. It's an actual injury that so many people deal with, but it's so different to talk about. So if we could change that mentality to similar to an actual injury, like a broken bone or whatever that is, and have it similar in that light, then I think it would really change things.
And not that we can all be doctors and recognize when our friends have broken bones, but I'm going to be honest. I know my partners, there was a couple months ago, they recognized I wasn't feeling great. You see someone struggling, give them a second chance. They've had I know my partners do this all the time. You're having a bad day, recognize, give someone a second strike, because you don't know what they've been through before, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Because everybody has their own story, like we've been saying, right? We all come from a place of all sharing or all experiencing our own struggles and our own stories. And we forget that, right? We forget that we're all human at the end of the day. And there's always this idea that everybody's perfect, when in reality, that's so not the case. Right. Yeah. And that's how we bond too, which is interesting, right? Like when you form a relationship with somebody, it's usually like, I had this experience, and you're like, wow, like I have that experience too, or whatever. And that is a part of developing that relationship. So it's interesting that we, it's so hard then to share that when it is, when you would accept it from a close friend. So Sorry, did you have something to say?
Well, I was just going to say that it's interesting that you say that because in family counseling and in couples counseling, we often say that, sometimes we can recognize when a partner or a family member is struggling before they even recognize that they're struggling.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes we're just so in, the quote unquote rat race that we don't even realize that, we're not being efficient, we're not being effective, and, just things aren't hitting the mark. And sometimes our partners or our family members can say, hey, like, I noticed that, there's something going on for you, how can I support you? And so that's such a good key way to keep, again, open that conversation, hold each other accountable, and to let each other know that we're supporting each other.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's, so that's a really good strategy. So nicely done. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay. So then I have a bit of maybe a more personal, if that's even possible. We've been sharing a lot of personal in this episode, but maybe a more specific personal question about what has been difficult for each of you sort of living through this pandemic in the past year. So what has been the greatest challenge for you, I guess, individually? Dave, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah. The last year's been different for sure, and I've been so fortunate because I joined 360 right when COVID started, like at the very beginning of COVID. So came into it at definitely a weird time, but like Bryce said, we've had a very successful year. We've grown through the pandemic. So career wise, I've been so fortunate to join this great company. But at the same time, it's been so weird. I have two boys now. I had our second in the middle of the pandemic, wearing masks in the hospital, and it just adds that layer of stress to everything. How you're busy at work. There's all these things going on with outbreaks in my wife's school. She's a teacher, and then a case in my son's daycare, and all these little extra things. When you're really busy at work, you're trying to balance, home and work. And it got to me for sure. And we talk about being vulnerable. I feel embarrassed that it got to me for a while because I was, busy at work and so fortunate that my work wasn't affected. But you're trying to balance all these things. It's adding stress to your young family. And then on top of that, there's the division of what you should think, like between, your family and your friends. Everybody's on different spectrums of, who you should see and what you should do, and is that responsible, and is that safe, or is that better for society? Like, there's just so many different things that you had to be aware of, and if you saw someone that you weren't supposed to, you felt bad about it. And there was just so many layers of added stress from this unknown disease to what you thought or what your friends and family thought you were doing. And then, just typical balancing, family life and work. It added stress for sure that I had never experienced before. But, we got through it and definitely leaned on my wife, who's super strong mentally, because she tells me that I hold things in all the time and I need to show my emotions more. But yeah, I just think it was just all those different layers of added stress that made it for a challenging year, and is the reason that mental health got exposed even more in this past year and a half.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know you touched on so many things that I think everybody can relate to, right? I mean, we all had that experience of, especially that last piece around the different ideas of what's right and what's wrong, because nobody really knew, right? Yeah. This is new for us. Like, nobody really knows what is right at the end of the day. Yeah. And we're all scrambling, trying to figure that out. And it's funny how it was such a isolating experience, but yet everybody was going through the exact same thing, you know, like, so it's funny that we felt isolated in that, but yet everybody, like, at every household was having the exact same conversation. So,
and that's really how this podcast came to be. Is I had said to Nikki, I feel like I'm having the same conversation, never before in my practice have I had that, where I'm having the exact same conversation with every client, because everybody is going through the same thing. So that was the platform to starting this podcast is, okay, everybody is actually in the exact same situation. So let's talk about it and let's, get some ideas out there that people can access easily, and hopefully get extra support, through a podcast, to navigate this. Cause it's everybody went through the exact same thing and nobody had any idea what was right or what was wrong. And there is no such thing as right or wrong, really, truly. Right. So
Bryce, I wanted to make sure you have an opportunity to respond to that as well.
Well, no, I said something earlier about the sine curve, like things being up and down. And that's really what COVID has been. This whole thing, it's been an up, we've been together, and it's been down. We've been locked in. And that's really what I've struggled with more than everything, than anything is the polarized change, is being with everybody and then being alone. And so, it's just, that's been the hardest thing to deal with, is that constant change. And then I'm looking forward to having more of a straight line normality in life rather than polarized.
Yeah, exactly.
Chaos.
Well,
right?
and like we've been saying, like life is chaos anyway, just to begin with, right?
Yeah.
And then we threw this whole
That's right.
pandemic in front and on top of everything else, and it's just like, it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
So one of the last questions that I have for you then is, and you both have touched on this quite a bit already throughout the episode, but I want to just kind of crystallize this and bring it together, which is around, if you could share maybe one thing that you've learned from your struggles or your challenges over this past year, what has been the most important thing that you've kind of learned from this journey and that you hope to keep in mind sort of going forward? Bryce, do you want to go first?
I guess your question is mostly with respect to mental health. And so really, obviously it's really to have the courage and the strength, which is the hardest thing to do when you need help. Because that's really the hardest thing, is to have the courage and strength to reach out, right? And that's really what if I can have one thing come from this, is to give someone the strength to reach out when they need help.
Yeah.
And that's it, right? And honestly, it's great to reach out all the time, 100%, and it should be part of everybody's routine daily. Is just, how you doing? I'm not doing that great. And just, it should be like that. I'm not doing that great. It should be that easy to say, but to have the courage to say that every day.
Yeah.
And that's what I and the courage to have candor. I'm not doing that great because.
Yeah.
And so, and that's the one thing I would hope for.
Yeah.
So
it's fantastic. Yeah. Yeah. And it's beautiful. And it's exactly what we need, right? We need to shift that perspective. So
we're not alone in this, right? We're all,
exactly. That's right. Dave, what's one thing that you are hoping to take away from this that you've learned?
Really similar, being comfortable and having the courage to speak, but also just same thing, just show your emotions a little bit. Because that's something that, I've always known that I haven't done well. If I don't like to show stress and I hold it all inside, and then it's just like too much. So just be comfortable to show emotions if you're if you're not feeling 100% mentally, and find ways to release. Talk to people, and it's been tough this last year because we haven't seen people face to face, and I'm not a phone call guy. I don't like talking on the phone forever. I like physical connections, so that's been tough for sure. So just finding a way to release, and that might be exercise or whatever it is for you. Just find that release, but number one being comfortable to speak and show your emotions outwardly or physically.
Yeah.
No, that's
awesome.
perfect.
Yeah.
Jenna, anything that you want to add sort of based on our conversation?
Yeah. To touch on what Bryce said first, to get rid of "I'm good," right? When people are saying like, how are you? I'm good. We really need to get rid of that statement, right?
I know. All right. Yeah.
Yeah. Or I'm good or I'm fine.
Yeah.
Right. And
that's just an easy out. That's like, all right.
Yeah. And
That's all it is.
Yeah, it's an
All right.
empty statement, and if we could just get rid of that, I think that would help a lot of people. If we could just say like that answer is not acceptable, and just to say, tell me what's really going on. It's or I'm actually really good. I'm really good. But this, I'm good. I'm not having it. I don't like it.
I love it.
So I like that. And Dave, I'm with you. Everybody has their ways of managing, what's going on with them, and to be able to show that. And yes, there is a lot of anxiety about people getting back together and not sure how to be together. Mm-hmm. But I think, if we go into, everything opening up again, businesses opening up. If we go into it thinking that, okay, you know what, we've all been struggling, so we're all in the exact same spot, then hopefully these conversations will happen a little bit easier, and we'll be kinder to each other as we get back into the motions of being together. So that's my hope.
100%.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So the last most important question
Yes.
is, how can people support the Mullets for Mental Health initiative? Tell us how we do that.
Dave.
So first, you can visit our GoFundMe page. There's a link to it. I can send that to you, or you could just Google 360 Mullets for Mental Health. It should be the first one that pops up. So it just kind of tells you a little bit about our campaign and the team that's fundraising for it. Cash donations are great. 100% goes to Canadian Mental Health Association. But just, like we've talked about, getting the word out, the awareness, maybe liking our posts on social media or sharing them and saying, these guys are goofballs, look at their hair. We'll post some photos next week when we actually cut it. It doesn't have to be cash, just that awareness and having some fun with it, just getting the word out. That's the number one thing in this whole campaign.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask that question about, so what's the process now for, we want to see your mullet. So what happens? How are we going to see the end product? And when it's all crafted into this beautiful artistic creation, how do we see that?
Yeah. Intimidating.
Intimidating. Fierce. When you think of mullets, think of fierce. I know.
Well, you can follow us on LinkedIn and Instagram. Those are the two social media channels we use. So we'll post pictures on both of those. And if you ever come to the office, I think we might frame a couple if they're frame worthy and hang them up.
We love it.
Funny story about that, actually. We got to throw it in. So on the global story, I don't know if you noticed, there was like a zoom in way too long of Bryce literally curling his hair with one finger. And we were just losing it. So Mark Ashton, our president, took a still of that, the finger through the curls, and blew it up like 8x4 and hung it up in the kitchen. So it's currently on the wall.
It's not in the kitchen. It's right outside my office.
Oh yeah.
And so the worst part is it's right where my head is. So I haven't told many people this. Mm-hmm. It's the profile of my head is exactly where my reflection is in the glass. So sometimes I'm confused by my afro like back of my head over the top, and it actually makes me feel a lot younger because you can't tell.
That's a bonus.
I know. Mark doesn't know that. He was trying to make fun of me.
My goodness.
That backfired, didn't it?
Yeah, I know. I've actually gained a whole bunch of self-confidence because of that poster.
More intimidation factor.
So what you guys don't know is that the first time we created the website for the company, they put a picture of me from the up and behind. So what you don't know, I don't know if Global was so kind. I didn't actually finish watching the Global thing because I couldn't stomach it because it was like, okay. So anyway, I'm segueing two stories into one, but so what happened is my partners created a website for our business from the table, standing, looking at the monkey's butt on the top of my head. So I said something about it. So instead of finding another photo, my really great partner just airbrushed hair on my head so he could tell everybody that he airbrushed hair on my head. I'm pretty sure that's why he did it. You know, there's no other photos in all of eternity, on all of the world. That could be better. No, we have to use that one and airbrush hair on your head. So thanks, Mark. That was a really good picture of me.
But now look
Now
look at well, it's still there. I think they still use it. There's like a still. I think there's probably 10,000 pictures that have been taken of me since then, but it's still on the website.
Well, at least now everybody will go to your
Airbrushed.
website, check it out.
I don't. That was not the intention of this. The intention of this was to shame Mark. But no.
Thank you guys.
God. It's been wonderful.
this has been such a fantastic conversation.
Yeah.
And clearly we can, based on the conversation, we can tell that there is definitely a mullet culture at your work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's working on it. It's
yeah. But no, honestly though, thank you both for being courageous and open and honest and vulnerable. You are the key to changing the conversation as we go forward. And so we, given our backgrounds, this is just fantastic to hear that this conversation is happening and that you're willing to take the charge on that and to be leading it. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great.
As always, we will end this episode with a quote. Today we have two. The first one comes from Dave. He chose a quote from Willie Nelson. He says, "If you're not crazy, there's something wrong with you." The second quote comes from Bryce's mom. She says, "Someone who lives life in fear doesn't live at all."